And Graeme Forsyth back here on Amateur Sports TV for this edition of Coffee with Graeme. And thanks for joining us here on this beautiful, beautiful morning in Winnipeg City. And if you guys can't tell, I got a haircut, decided to cut them up, decided it was time for a little trim, more than a little trim actually. But today we got the Manitoba Junior Baseball League President Jamie Bettens joining us here on the network today, and they decided to press play on their season back in late June on June 28th. They decided to get the season going, and it's an awesome thing to see. So we bring in Jamie in right now. And Jamie, how's it going?
Very good. How are you today?
I'm doing great, and it's great that we were finally able to connect. We got through all the connection problems here. It's great to see.
Absolutely. Good to be here.
Yeah, thanks for joining us today. So you're the president of the Manitoba Junior Baseball League. I just want to get into your background in baseball before we get into anything you do with Manitoba Junior Baseball League here, because you do have a pretty big background in baseball. You played college ball. You played in the Manitoba Junior Baseball League way back when, and you also had a chance to play for Team Canada too.
Absolutely. I feel very fortunate to be, a baseball player from Winnipeg, from St. Vital, St. Boniface, growing up, and to be able to accomplish what I did. It certainly took a small village to do so. I had a lot of great mentors. My parents were fantastic in supporting me along the way. And again, I'm just a very lucky guy. I was taught to work hard, and my hard work paid off to a certain degree. And now I'm just that same guy who tries to find the next, maybe Jamie Bettens or other player out there that's looking for that opportunity and help them out too.
And talking about mentors here, would you say that your parents were your biggest mentors growing up, or would you say that there was a coach or a player that was maybe a big mentor to you?
I think in order to get to some of the places that I've been able to get to in baseball, it's always going to be the parents as kind of the backbone. I grew up in a very humble upbringing, but always had the best or better skates or a glove growing up, and the equipment that we needed, and then the support was there, whether it was a 5 a.m. practice or a 10 p.m. practice. There was always a ride or be willing to pick me up, and I certainly took that to heart. I had a lot of really, really good coaches along the way as well that have been influencing for me, on and off the field. And like I said, there's just so many different influences for me. And now I try to take a little bit from all of them and make that into kind of who I am as a coach as well.
So you hinted at skates a bit. So did you play other sports growing up like hockey?
Absolutely. No different than, any other kind of local guy. Hockey in the winter, and then you took off the skates and put on the spikes in the summertime and played baseball. There's so many other great sports out there, but hockey and baseball just seem to be the ones that I gravitated to.
Right on, right on. And I'm 19 years old now, and I grew up playing hockey. I played some flag football myself too on the side. So just talking about being a two-sport athlete, how important do you think it is for young athletes growing up? We talk about it so much here on the show about two-sport athletes because we've had many of them join the show. How important do you think it is to kind of step away from one sport and take some time to play the other to kind of accommodate that into your game as an athlete?
There's a few different philosophies out there. The 10,000 hours rule. You need to put in 10,000 hours of practice to become elite at the sport that you're in, and I subscribe to that to a certain extent. But I think even greater for me is building the athlete. A lot of the people that I've trained with or train talk about building an athlete, and when that comes to mind, I really think and I really believe that you need to play multiple sports. You need to take your body out of the comfort zones of maybe hockey and baseball and put them into other sports where your body performs other athletic movements to truly become the best athlete possible. Once you become a good athlete, then you can specialize within your sport and become a little bit more elite as you get a little bit older.
And for sure, I really love what you said there about building as an athlete, because you could play one sport, but then there's other aspects of your game as an athlete that maybe you could develop in other sports as well, like baseball and hockey. So you're from Winnipeg, Manitoba. You grew up in the St. Boniface area, am I correct?
St. Boniface, St. Vital, Bonnie Vital for baseball purposes, yeah.
Yeah, so your background in baseball, you played baseball growing up at a pretty high level. Was it the AAA level you played growing up in?
Yes, yeah, Glenwood Community Center, then right up to Boniface AAA with the Lancers back then, now the Black Sox program. Then played obviously in the Manitoba Junior Baseball League with the Legionnaires, Team Manitoba with the provincial youth team for a few years, and then obviously moving on to college, playing down at Southwestern down in Iowa, and then a cup of coffee with the Gold Eyes, and then kind of finished the career off before my shoulder really gave out with Team Canada at the World Baseball Challenge.
And you were a pitcher in your professional career and your college career as well. Did you play multiple positions growing up, or are you strictly just a pitcher growing up?
You know what? It's funny because this is something that now I do with my daughter. I was a pitcher, and when we talk about building the athlete, as we did even a couple of minutes ago, there was a few times where I remember coaches saying, you know what, you just need to focus on pitching. Don't, you're not going to hit. We're going to have somebody hit for you as a DH today, or, don't play a position because you got to focus on your pitching. And it's funny, but now as I coach my athletes, I try to get them to do everything for as long as possible. There's going to be a time when you need to specialize at an elite level and maybe hone in on your skill if you want to become an elite college or national team level athlete. But as a younger player, no different than hockey or any sport, the more that you can play multiple positions, learn different facets of the game, I think you become a better athlete within that sport quicker.
And moving on to your time with the St. Boniface Legionnaires, what was the decision to join the Manitoba Junior Baseball League?
I think for me, it was about challenge. I think I was 16 years old. I had two older brothers that kind of went through the system, one that played for them for a number of years. And I grew up kind of watching them and admiring how they did things, and going to see a Legionnaire game at Provencher Park with 300-400 fans going all the way down the foul lines was something that excited me. So when I had my chance to do it at about 16 years old, after doing some work with the provincial team, I jumped at the chance to play with 18 to 21-year-old athletes as a 16-year-old. Has its challenges, but it certainly has its opportunities as well, and I welcome that.
And so you played for many years in the Manitoba Junior Baseball League, and then you got an opportunity to play college as well. So just talking about the development that you were able to take in as a player with the St. Boniface Legionnaires, your time in that league, how important was that to set the blueprint for who you became as a pro player and a college player moving on?
Absolutely. The Manitoba Junior Baseball League is a great place for a young athlete to train and kind of get better at their craft and then test themselves at the next level. Being able to face a 21-year-old, four-hole hitter from the Pembina Valley Orioles certainly prepared me to go face, an elite college level hitter. So when I went down there in the fall, I felt a certain degree of confidence. Obviously, nerves and being into a new situation plays a little bit of a part of it. But I felt that there were times when I was there in my first year that I would look at certain players that I'd be facing and I'd say, that's no different than facing that person or that person that I faced earlier that summer. Even playing for Team Manitoba at the Canada Games in Brandon way back in, I think it was 97, pitching against Team Ontario, there were some great players on those teams that went on to have great careers. And so to be able to, utilize the Manitoba Junior Baseball League to gain experience for college, I think it's great. And I think it's evidenced by the game now with the Manitoba Junior Baseball League. We're seeing a lot of players go on to college scholarships and then still come back and do very well in the league, but still be testing themselves at the same time.
And I think that's really a great point that you brought up, is facing those older guys is such a big part of players' development in this league, because you guys had so many players move on to college and to that next level. That's such a great thing to see.
Yeah, for the league, it's not a real publicized fact, but the Manitoba Junior Baseball League, in kind of its heyday over the past decade or so, or maybe even a little bit more, we're averaging, 20 to 30 players that are going on and having U.S. college or Canadian college scholarships. If you compare that to some of the other sports leagues, in our province, be it hockey or other things too, those numbers are right on par with those leagues, or sometimes even better as far as, gaining opportunities for college and scholarship opportunities for school and education and sports down in the U.S.
And moving on into college, you played for the Southwestern Community College team there. What would you say was the strengths that in your game shined the most in your time there?
It's funny. My coach always said, I love Canadians. I love recruiting Canadians. They come down with a hockey player mentality where we know how to grind. If you're a hockey player, you're an athlete, even I'll specify from Manitoba, when it's cold winters and you got to drag yourself to a gym and work out, or drag yourself to the rink at 6 a.m. for a practice and go to school all day and have a game maybe later on that night, you understand how to grind. And that was probably one of the first things that really led to any degree of success for me is, there was not really a sore arm that was going to stop me, or being tired at the end of practice that was stopping me. I was prepared to grind and work hard, and it paid off.
And just talking about the grind that you went through out your time in college, and that was such a big trait that you possess. Would you say that through your 2 years in college, because you played 2 years for Southwestern, would you say that you found some things in your game that maybe were undiscovered before you got to college?
Absolutely. College baseball unlocked a ton for me, because there I went from, a 28 game schedule in the Manitoba Junior Baseball League, or playing, 18U baseball in Manitoba, including tournaments, maybe playing, 30 games max, to a college season where we had 30 games in the fall with scrimmages, and then we played a 30 game season. So, when you do that and you play baseball almost every single day, you grow so much as a player, just in repetition and confidence, that, those were things that, when I came back my first year and played some summer ball, just the difference that I noticed in my ability versus who I was before I left was a huge step.
And then you got to move on to play with your hometown Goldeyes for a year, right?
Yeah, it was the 99 season. I played with them in the first half of that season, and the team had some struggles. Things didn't quite work out, and I was one of the players that was deemed expendable to make some changes to try and take them in the right direction. And that was about the end of that.
And then with the Winnipeg Goldeyes, even though you talked about it earlier in the show, you said it was like a cup of coffee. I thought that was pretty funny, and I have a coffee cup right here, so that it kind of suited the theme of the show, Coffee with Graeme.
Yeah.
The feeling of playing in your hometown, probably an incredible feeling to get a chance to play pro ball in your hometown. How was the feeling really like getting to play here?
Second to none. Those are memories that nobody can take from me, no matter how long or short my stint was with somebody like the Goldeyes. There's been players before, and probably likely some after me, that will, get called up and sit in for 3 games due to roster situations. And those are special moments that, no matter how long the stint is, people can't take that from you. To be able to come home after being away for a number of years and have friends, family, girlfriends come out to the game and watch you play, it's outstanding. You get a chance to kind of show them who you've turned into as a player. And I remember every single moment, from warming up in the bullpen to having my name announced, to kind of a funny story. I have friends of mine that, all were at the game and taping it because it was on TV. And, side note, funny note, I guess, I gave up a home run on the very first pitch in relief, kind of opening up the new stadium. And I have a lot of friends that to this day still don't let me forget about that moment.
And just the experience of playing in that first pro game is just that's an awesome experience for sure. So your stay with the Winnipeg Goldeyes was short. You said you spoke about it a bit earlier, a few moments ago, that you were considered one of the expandable players on that team. Was that the biggest reason why you made that decision to call it a career with the Goldeyes?
Yeah, I mean, I was having shoulder issues kind of going into that season anyways. I'd spent a lot of time after college working out for pro teams in hopes of getting drafted. Didn't quite work out my way, but it taught me, or at least it educated me at the time, that I had an opportunity to get into pro ball. I had some other opportunities to maybe go into some bigger schools for Division I scholarships, but the financing to do so just wasn't quite something that my family was prepared to do. So the opportunity to go to pro ball was something I took. But all of those camps and all of those free agent opportunities and throwing for somebody and waiting 2 days and throwing for them again to see if, you know, the arm speed could be maintained, took its toll, and tore my labrum. And that was kind of the tail end of the career, I guess you could say, at that point.
And how much did an impact did it have on your, obviously your physical health, but your mental state, suffering an injury like that? Because a torn labrum is a pretty big deal for sure.
Absolutely. For a baseball player and for a pitcher specifically, I mean, your bread and butter is your arm. You know, to lose that opportunity and understand that when something like of that magnitude happens, the ability to recover 100% and be the person you were, or try to even get better, is a tough thing to do. I was getting a little bit older. I did have an education, and it was easier to transition at that point. But you know, I was also the kind of guy that would have kept playing for the love of the game for a long time if I had the opportunity to do so.
And you also had a chance to play in the World Baseball Challenge. We were speaking about this yesterday. You said you couldn't remember what year it quite was because that was a while ago. But pretty cool opportunity to play for Team Canada on a big stage for sure. So do you remember what that process was like trying to make that team?
That it was a selection of players from across the country. There was a couple of coaches, Todd Claxton and Jim Baba, who's still with Baseball Canada, that were looking for players of kind of my caliber and at the right stage of their careers that had some pro experience that can kind of go into these tournaments. And I was just assembled as part of a group. I think I knew maybe 4 or 5 guys as I'd played against them or with them over the years. And then the rest of the guys were from all over the country that got to know. And we kind of threw a group together and went for it and had a great time.
And even though it is a long time ago, I just want to congratulate you on that, because making a team like that is a big deal. And just, I want to wonder what the feeling was like for you, because you put in so much work before making that team in your college career and the process into getting into college, making a pro team with the Winnipeg Goldeyes. Was the feeling of making that team a big reward for you? Like, how rewarding was that?
You know what? You hear a lot of athletes talk about it when they go to the Olympics or anytime they represent their national team program, and it doesn't really matter the sport. You know, whenever you have a chance to put the word Canada across your chest and represent your country, it's different than doing it for, say, Manitoba, or it's different than, you know, representing, you know, maybe the area where you live. When you get to represent a country on a stage like that, that's a special moment that you don't take lightly. You realize that you're amongst a special group that, you know, is also working very hard to get there as well. So again, you know, I have a picture in my office with that jersey on from that moment that I hold very near and dear to my heart, and it's still a very special thing for me.
And the level of pride, like as you said, it's great to make maybe representing your province like Manitoba, or say you're from Alberta, representing Alberta, but the level of pride would be there. But for you making a team like Team Canada, the pride was like maybe up here, right?
Absolutely. And what I like is the ability to now have that as, I guess you could call it a bit of a baseball resume, when you go to teach the next wave of young players. And I'm dealing with a group of 9 and 10-year-old pitchers who aspire to maybe be, you know, on Team Canada someday, or get a college scholarship. I just find, you know, when I try to relate to them some of the messages and some of the teachings that I've acquired over the years, and I can say it, that I've been there. I've been fortunate enough that I've accomplished a few things in my baseball career, and have learned along the way. I've learned from, you know, making mistakes as well. And that's why I'm here, to help these 9 and 10-year-olds maybe get to that next level. And I feel that by having accomplished something, I think the message is a little bit easier for those players to understand and to listen to a little bit more. You seem to gain a little bit of respect from that, and I don't take that lightly. In fact, I probably work twice as hard to try and help these kids even more.
And moving into your coaching career, you've coached many teams, but one most notably is the St. Boniface Legionnaires, one of your former teams. So how did you get that opportunity to become the coach of the St. Boniface Legionnaires?
When I got into my coaching career, I started with the organization in Boniface that I had played for the number of years, and there were some rumblings that the Legionnaires, who had become dormant for a few years, were looking to get a team back in the league. I knew some of the executives because some of them were around when I was playing with the Legionnaires, and they asked me if I'd be interested in the opportunity, and I absolutely jumped at the chance. Didn't really know the players at the time, but now all of those players I still are in relatively close contact with, and I feel like they're, brothers or sons of mine. They're definitely like family to me. And it was just it's a great opportunity. The Legionnaires are a great organization. The MJBL as a whole has great organizations all over the province with great executives. It's a really, really good league with a lot of good players and teams.
And just talking about those experiences that you learned from in college, in your time playing in the MJBL, playing for the Winnipeg Goldeyes, and also playing for Team Canada, do you think that those experiences that along the way helped you become a better coach?
100% they do. There's no bones about that one bit. When you get to see the different levels, the different types of players, and just be exposed to the elite coaches that I was fortunate enough to be around, if you are someone that is a student of the game, and I would bill myself as a student of the game, without question, those are easily my biggest influences as a coach, and what I still draw on today as a youth coach or an instructor.
And would you say, as a player going into coaching, would you say that gives you kind of a different perspective as to how to build a team, how to manage your team out there?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of talented coaches out there that didn't play. I certainly don't want to discredit any of that. I just feel my asset to a coaching staff would be somebody that can draw on those experiences and maybe pick out some of the little things to take a team to a next level, so to speak. There's so many great coaches out there, and it's all in the delivery of the message. A big thing for me as a coach that I try to talk to other coaches about when I'm kind of teaching them or anything is, kids or players, they don't care about how much you know until they know about how much you care. And that's a big thing that I learned from a lot of coaches, and I'm passionate about what I do. And I think that once the players get a feel for that, they're open to the message, and the fact that I can bring them a pretty extensive message based on my background is a bit of a win-win for everybody. It's very rewarding as well.
Yeah, that's great stuff. Great stuff. So we're gonna get into your time with the MJBL in just a second here, or in just a moment here, as I should say. We're going to go to our first commercial break here on the show. We're going to hear from our lovely sponsors here who've decided to support the show today. But we'll be right back with MJBL President Jamie Bettens in just a moment.
At Collins Hotel, we have you and your family's comfort in mind. Relax in one of our 16 suites featuring king or queen-size beds and 36-inch TVs. Suites also include a mini fridge and other kitchen appliances to make your stay as comfortable as possible. During your stay in Pilot Mound, visit Weiser's Restaurant, our attached family-friendly restaurant and bar. It is the perfect location to host group meals, dine with the family, or unwind after a hockey game. Come in and meet our friendly staff offering daily specials on food and drinks, wing night Wednesdays, buffet Fridays, and multiple TVs to watch the game. Weiser's is the place to be. Collins Hotel and Weiser's Restaurant and Bar, located across the street from Blackjack Stewart Arena off Highway 3 in Pilot Mound.
Graeme Forsyth back here with Jamie Bettens, president of the MJBL. That stands for the Manitoba Junior Baseball League. And we haven't even gotten into his time with the MJBL as the president so far, because before the break, we talked about his playing career, his coaching career up to this point. But now we're going to move into the president stuff and how the 2020 season is going so far. So you became the president of the MJBL. I don't know quite when you became the president. So when did you become the president?
About 7 or 8 years ago, I took over from Scott Nealis. Scott Nealis is very well known in the baseball and softball community here. Scott Nealis was a very passionate leader for the MJBL, took us to some great places, helped with some expansion of the league, and was looking for somebody to kind of take over his role, but maintain the same level of passion and the vision that he had. We certainly aligned on those processes, and it wasn't a very tough decision for me to make to kind of step up and try to help out this league wherever I could.
And that was a decision that you felt comfortable making at the time?
Absolutely. It was that time after coaching for a number of years, getting involved and having a family, I think had a little bit to do with that as well, because my ability to coach and make the commitment that I typically would make to a team was becoming a little bit more difficult. But I didn't want to stop giving back. And so, by being the president, I felt there was still an opportunity to affect not just the team that I would have been coaching, but now the whole league, players, executive, and the like. And again, draw from experiences of playing and coaching in other areas to try and make this league as best as we can.
So you've had a chance to coach some teams while you've been a president?
Not at the same time, not in the league. No, just stayed in the president's role.
Okay. So what are the different tasks that come along with the job of being the president? And I'm sure that there's so many things that you got to take into account when you have such a big role like you do.
As a president, a lot of the heavy lifting, I guess we could refer to it as, gets done in the off season. And none of that takes place without having a great executive group. When you have a great executive group, you can disperse some of the jobs and some of the roles to those people. You bounce a lot of feedback off of certain member teams that have had a lot of experience in the league. And we meet quite a few times before the season gets started. And that's where we discuss as a member group, scheduling conflicts, different age ranges of the league. We've started to include some younger players now. Very proud to say that the executive membership was one of the first leagues ever in the country to approve female players in our league. And we had a couple of female players in our league last year that had some stints with Team Canada and looking to stay sharp. So it's those kind of things. And then it's everything from finances and marketing and just trying to keep the league running as smoothly as possible.
And it's great to know that you guys can find a way to get females to get into the game in the Manitoba Junior Baseball League.
Yeah, it was something very special to us. To be able to have Britt Langley and Sarah Moyer, playing for us was a big thing. And it wasn't about publicity. Obviously, a little bit came with that, but it wasn't about that. It was about helping people continue their careers and get them the right amount of repetitions for them to hit their goals and chase their dreams and aspirations. So the fact that we could do that as a league was something that wasn't taken lightly. We really appreciated the opportunity when it was presented to us, and we welcomed it with open arms, and still do today for any female players that are capable of playing at that level.
And I'm assuming there's always challenges along the way with scheduling, with getting everything organized. And for this year, COVID-19, the pandemic that hit, I feel like those challenges were at an all-time high. Can you go into depth of what some of the challenges you guys faced this year were truly like getting this season prepared? Because you guys started later than expected to in earlier seasons.
Absolutely. I think it's also important to point out that the Manitoba Junior Baseball League, I think, I could be corrected, but was probably the very first league to be able to be playing baseball in Canada. And we got a little bit of press and notoriety for that. And that came because of our executive members. The challenges right off the bat were health and safety. It wasn't about the sport. It wasn't about, playing at that point. It was, how do we keep everybody safe? And that's the people in the small towns and the cities that we play in, to being around the ballpark workers, players, executives. Once we had a safety plan kind of in place, we did a lot of alignment, I guess, with Baseball Manitoba and their return to play document. But as a league, our member teams worked extremely hard to figure out the best way to do this, make sure that we're prepared, and also prevent any opportunities to kind of slip up, for lack of a better term, while we're playing, because we are still in the COVID situation and we still have to monitor it and take good care of ourselves and adhere to these guidelines, or we may slip back and not have baseball for an even longer time.
And the return to play guidelines, the guidelines and checklists that are distributed out to the players and coaches, has there been any problems with teams following the guidelines so far, or has it been pretty smooth sailing?
I think our teams have been really good. I don't think anybody's perfect. So, if you were to attend a Manitoba Junior Baseball League game, you may or may not see, a couple of parents sitting a little bit too close, or a coach may, within their realm of passion, go out to talk to one of their pitchers and forget about the distancing. So we understand that. It's obviously something we work to try and avoid, but we also have employed each team to have a kind of a safety spotter, if you will, that will send me a detailed report at the end of the game if there was any infractions. And then I communicate back to the teams just to let them know of the situation that was happening. And hopefully we can correct that moving forward and never look back on a situation.
And moving on to the teams that returned this year, all teams returned, and then you guys had the opportunity to add another team to the league in Winnipeg South. And I read an article that you were featured in with the Winnipeg Free Press to prepare for this interview, and you said last year in 2019 that stability was one of the main themes of the league last year. So you guys added more stability this year with those 7 teams coming back and then adding an 8th with Winnipeg South. How encouraging is that to see the stability that you guys have been able to show this throughout the last 2 years?
I think that the best thing that does is it talks back to the players, actually, because it says players are staying in with the game. They're staying active, and they want to play beyond the 18U league that they would have maybe graduated from to get into the junior league. There's senior baseball, and senior baseball has had a great time for a number of years as well. But the junior league sometimes, maybe not this past decade, but maybe prior to that, it was going through an absolute heyday. The league was strong. There was tons of players playing, and everything was going well. But then it kind of waned a little bit, and players are starting to choose other things and have other things to do. By having an 8th team and showing the players and the fans that we are successful and that we are growing, says a lot about the game in the province. Obviously, Baseball Manitoba is doing a good job as well with keeping the game growing. And from a league standpoint, whenever you can add a team but still have a significant player pool, it bodes well for the competition of the league. Winnipeg South is a special case in that they are a very, very strong minor ball system. They've always had successful teams at the AAA level at 13, 15, and 18U. So it was really unfortunate that they weren't able to continue at the junior level. However, a byproduct of being successful at those younger ages is that some of those players have moved on and play at academies in other provinces. So it was hard to field a team. So the fact that they now boast strong enough numbers to maintain a team is a very positive sight, and we hope that they are with us for a very long time.
And just moving on to the teams that have been able to have success in your league, and one of the most notable teams is the Elmwood Giants. They've been on a great run for this past decade with a few championships to add to their name. So a team like that, and just the successful teams in general in the Manitoba Junior Baseball League, how are those successful teams built from a roster standpoint? Is it depth in pitching? Is it having a strong infield, outfield? Is it just great offense with the batting, or is it just to have that depth all around the lineup?
You know what? You actually have to peel a couple layers back on the onion there to see what an organization like Elmwood does for success. And it is obviously on field, but I think, an absolute strength or backbone of the Elmwood Giants is their organization. They have Hall of Fame people working for them, be it from the president right on through to the management level with Ed Kulik, who's managing the team currently. They have such a devoted group of executives with a passion for the game that is really unrivaled, anywhere in the province. No disrespect to any other organizations, but, Elmwood really stands out as one of those groups that is extremely passionate. They have a great facility that they're constantly trying to upgrade. And when you put together a program based off of that, players gravitate and want to play in those kind of programs. And that's something that, I try to encourage every team in our league, not necessarily to follow their model, but to create a program type atmosphere that players want to get into. And once they're in, they don't want to leave and be a part of. And another offshoot of that with Elmwood is that you see a lot of their assistant coaches are former players. So that speaks volumes as to how well they may have enjoyed their time there, because they want to put back and make sure that the future generations enjoy it the same way they did. So, Elmwood, St. Boniface has a history of success. All of our teams, are very successful in their own right. I think that some of our newer franchises, be it Altona, Pembina Valley, and Carillon, I think they're certainly working their way up to having those kind of opportunities as well, because they've got great people there trying to make the same type of programming as well.
And I think that's a really great point you make. Is it's more off the field and how you build your program and trying to get players to come play for their teams. I think that's a great point right there for sure.
Absolutely. It's a recruiting tool unto itself. If you have a great program, you have some very passionate coaches, and you just put together kind of a winning attitude, the rest kind of falls into place, and the players, without question, you see it at the major league level as well. They notice, they know where the right teams are, and they know who treats the players well, and then they gravitate towards that.
So moving on to the 2020 season here, you guys usually start your season earlier in May, about the second week of May, I'm pretty sure, but you guys started it this year on June 28th because of the COVID-19 pandemic that hit us here in all across the world. But just talking about the schedule, you guys, I'm assuming you had to lower the number of games on the schedule this year. Does that affect how you guys format the schedule with season series and stuff like that?
We did. We really only reduced it by one game per opponent. So everybody plays everybody typically 4 or 5 times. This year it's kind of down to 3. We did benefit from the unfortunate fact that the national championships and the Western Canadian championships were canceled. So when we lost the ability to travel out of province, we gained probably another 2.5 to 3 weeks in extension of the season. So now we were able to continue to offer our players, a solid amount of games, maybe a little bit more condensed, but weather permitting, and it's been great so far, knock on wood. We're going to be able to extend our playoffs typically into August, when maybe we've had to shut our league down in order to send teams to championships. So we're not really going to miss a beat. In fact, I think our league is on the upswing as far as talent and ability, because a lot of the college players that maybe would have latched on to some other leagues in the country stayed home and played for their local teams this year. So I think we're actually seeing a very competitive league as well, even though it's a shorter season.
And going a bit off the field here, the challenge is obviously there's some changes to the rules, I'm assuming, but for attendance, how has attendance been this year with the COVID-19 playing a factor into all that?
I think in the early on, maybe the first couple of games, it was hard to tell, because I think people missed having the ability to go out and watch a ball game. And it's very unfortunate that the Winnipeg Goldeyes are playing out of Fargo this year, but we would be, next to senior ball, really the highest brand of competitive baseball in the province. And having an opportunity for the Goldeye fans, so to speak, come and watch some local baseball is actually added to kind of our attendance in a lot of places. And again, I will give a lot more credit back to our league executives in all of our teams, because they have to provide the right environment for our fans to feel safe, and it appears they've done so because we're benefiting from more people at games.
So moving into the teams, all 7 teams returned. You added an 8th team this year in Winnipeg South. We spoke about that already, but just how did the number of players on each roster change this year with the whole COVID-19 coming into effect?
No, we still keep our rosters capped around the 18 player limit. I think what we have seen, though, is with the lack of maybe training opportunities, we're seeing a lot of our programs reach back down to the 18U programs and using their feeder systems within their organizations to fill out rosters on some nights. But that's a great opportunity for those players on the 18U rosters to get a feel for the game, understand the speed of it, and hopefully want to be a part of that for the next few years as well. So we've seen a benefit from that.
And who would you say in the league this year? Because there's always teams that might have an off year the year before, and then they come back and have a great year. Which team would you say or group of teams have exceeded expectations so far this season?
I don't know if there's a good answer to that question, because all of our teams are fighting so hard to kind of be a part of something. And I think that the parity in the league is very evidenced by kind of the scheduling right now. Nobody's really running away with it. Pembina Valley, came out of the gate strong. They've dropped a couple of games now to kind of come back to the pack. I think, your Elmwoods and St. Boniface's will always have something to say. Altona is a hotbed for baseball, as is Carillon. And then the Interlake is kind of a team that, I'm watching closely as they seem to always build a team throughout the whole season. They're never going to come out of the gate super hot, but they always seem to be there in the end and make noise in the playoffs. So, nothing really stands out to me aside from maybe the parity of the league and how wide open it's going to be come playoff time.
And speaking about parity, would you say that the parity in the league this year is at an all-time high?
I would say it's very close to that. And that's what we strive for in a league, because then you have true competitiveness amongst the teams. It's no fun for anybody to beat somebody by 10 or 12 runs. It's no fun for the winning team, and it certainly isn't fun for the losing team in those situations. So when you know that you've got to drive an hour and a half to Altona and you're in for a heck of a ball game on a hot Friday night, that's what we strive for as a league, because they're going to come back and they're going to drive in and play Elmwood on Sunday, and they're going to get the same kind of game back. We like that. It's good for our players. They want that because they don't want any easy opportunities they're not going to develop, and they're not going to enjoy it if it's an easier game, you could say.
And just speaking about, we talked about it a bit earlier, Winnipeg South coming back into the league. It's great to see them back into the league for the first time this year in a while. So they're last place right now. Why would you say that they're experiencing their struggles right now?
You know what? When you start up a franchise again, the one thing that you have to overcome is your player pool. There are a number of players on existing teams in the league that have ties or are even geographically from the Winnipeg South area, but it is their right as players, when there was no team in Winnipeg South, to choose any team they wanted to continue their baseball careers. They have the opportunity to go back when a team starts up like Winnipeg South. However, they have the ability to choose and stay, and when that happens, it depletes the player pool as to maybe what they could have. I don't anticipate Winnipeg South staying in that spot for very long because of the talent level that comes up from the 18U program. So while they're there now, they're certainly not satisfied with it, and I don't anticipate them being there very long.
So you say that's the team to watch for in the future?
It could very well be. I don't think there's going to be a boring game on the schedule this year. I think every time you go to an MJBL game, there's some level of excitement there, and you're going to see some talented players and a ton of passion on the field as well.
That's awesome. That's awesome to see. And just last question here before we let you go. I know you're a busy man running a league like the MJBL for sure, but are there any early award candidates that you've kind of taken note of so far that you could tell us about?
You know what? I don't, and for me to speculate, that's kind of out of the job of the president. That's a league voted thing. So I certainly don't want to start any little fires or bulletin board material for any teams by anointing anybody. But again, if I was to pick an MVP, and this is a bit cliche, but I'm going to give it to our executives on all of our teams right now. To be able to be the first league out of the gate in Canada, provide a good program, still provide stability for not only the fans in the stands, but for the players on the field, and do what we've been doing so far. I truly think, as cliche as it sounds, that the real MVP is our league and our executives.
Well, that's great to see, and definitely they've been the driving force as to why this season is happening as it is right now. Jamie, it's been great talking to you on today's edition of Coffee with Graeme. Thanks for stopping by, and maybe when the season is coming to a close, we can have you on the show here again.
I would absolutely love that. It's been a great time. Thanks, Graeme.
All right, awesome, and cheers, eh?
Thank you. You too.
All right. And Jamie Bettens, the president of the MJBL, joining us here on this edition of Coffee with Graeme. And great show today. Moving into baseball, a topic that we usually don't really cover here on Coffee with Graeme. We want to start covering it more. We've usually covered hockey players and football players more, but we do want to start expanding our reach in the sports world here on Coffee with Graeme. And that's going to do it for today's edition of Coffee with Graeme here on Amateur Sports TV. I've been your host, Graeme Forsyth, and thanks for joining us here on this Tuesday morning. We film this on a Friday, but this does air on the Tuesday where you guys are watching it right now. And stay tuned this Thursday for a very special episode of Championship Rewind here on the network, where we take a look back at the College Belleville Barracudas for one final time here on Amateur Sports TV, their championship season. And we have two great guests joining us on the show this Thursday. You guys aren't going to want to miss it. It's airing at about 10:30 a.m., I think, so around that time. So you guys are going to want to stay tuned for that, and don't miss that as well. And there's many great shows on the network other than this. There's the On the Ice show, the Pilot Mound show, many of great shows they'll be airing all across the network this week. So you guys are going to want to stay tuned for those. And until next time, enjoy the weather. Summer is very short in Canada, especially in Winnipeg. So be sure to go out there, enjoy the sunshine while you can. And until next time, I've been your host of Coffee with Graeme, Graeme Forsyth. Signing off. Until next time, remember, grab a cup of Joe like I just did, sit back, and enjoy the show. See you next time. Have a good one.